When Marcus Sterling abandoned his wife Catherine at Riverside Grocery during the worst blizzard in Chicago's recorded history, he laughed as he drove away, certain she would have to crawl back to him begging for forgiveness. He had no idea that within 3 hours, a black Mercedes would pull up to rescue her, driven by someone who would call her ma'am with the utmost respect, and that this moment would expose secrets that would shatter his world forever. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The fluorescent lights of Riverside Grocery cast harsh shadows across the linoleum floors as Catherine Sterling stood motionless in aisle 7, staring at the text message that had just shattered her 22-year marriage. The words glowed accusingly from her phone screen. "Find your own way home. Maybe this will teach you to respect your husband's decisions. I'm done enabling your defiance." Outside, the wind howled with the fury of the century's worst blizzard, rattling the store's windows with ice pellets that sounded like machine gun fire. The Weather Service had issued dire warnings about whiteout conditions and life-threatening temperatures, urging all residents to seek immediate shelter. Inside the grocery store, emergency broadcasts played over the speakers, announcing road closures and advising against any travel until further notice. Catherine had come to the store with Marcus 30 minutes earlier, for what should have been a quick trip to gather supplies before the storm intensified. The argument had erupted suddenly, triggered by her refusal to cancel her volunteer shift at the women's shelter the following week. Marcus had demanded she prioritize his business dinner instead, insisting that her little charity work was becoming an embarrassment to his professional reputation. "You will call them right now and tell them you cannot make it," Marcus had declared in the canned goods aisle, his voice carrying the authoritative tone he typically reserved for his employees at Sterling Financial Advisory. "I have told the Hendersons that my wife will be available to entertain Mrs. Henderson while we discuss the merger details. This deal is worth $3 million, Catherine. Your soup kitchen can manage without you for one evening." Catherine had quietly but firmly refused, explaining that the shelter was hosting a job training workshop for domestic violence survivors, and she had committed to facilitating the financial literacy session. This was not a casual volunteer commitment she could easily reschedule. It was a specialized program she had developed over months of preparation, designed to help women achieve economic independence after leaving abusive relationships. Marcus's reaction had been swift and cruel. "Your priorities are completely backwards, Catherine. You spend more time worrying about strangers than supporting your own husband's career. Perhaps some time alone will help you remember where your loyalties should lie." He had stalked toward the exit without looking back, leaving Catherine standing beside a display of soup cans with her phone buzzing an incoming message that confirmed her worst fears about the man she had married. Marcus had driven away in their Range Rover, leaving her stranded 15 miles from home in conditions that meteorologists were calling potentially fatal. The store manager, a kind-faced woman named Gloria, approached with obvious concern. "Ma'am, I heard what happened over there. Are you all right? Do you need help calling someone for a ride?" Quote. Catherine managed a grateful smile despite her shock. "Thank you, Gloria. I appreciate your kindness. I will figure something out." The truth was that Catherine had no idea how she would get home. Their suburban neighborhood was accessible only through winding country roads that would be impassable in these conditions, even with proper winter vehicles. Her sister lived in California, her parents had passed away 3 years earlier, and Marcus had systematically discouraged her friendships over the years, claiming that her social activities interfered with his business networking requirements. As she considered her limited options, Catherine reflected on how she had arrived at this moment of complete isolation. 22 years earlier, she had been Catherine Morrison, a promising economics graduate with a full scholarship to pursue her MBA at Northwestern University. She had met Marcus during her senior year when he was a charismatic young financial advisor who promised her a partnership in both business and life. The early years of their marriage had seemed ideal. Marcus was ambitious and successful, providing financial security that allowed Catherine to pursue graduate studies while supporting his growing advisory firm. She had earned her MBA with concentrations in nonprofit management and social entrepreneurship, intending to develop programs that would help underserved communities build economic stability. However, As Marcus's business expanded and his client base became increasingly affluent, he began pressuring Catherine to abandon her social sector interests in favor of supporting his networking and client development activities. Charity galas and country club events became her primary professional outlets, while her expertise in community economic development remained unused. The transformation had been gradual and insidious. Marcus framed each request as temporary, claiming that once his business reached the next milestone, Catherine would have complete freedom to pursue her passions. The milestones kept shifting. First, it was reaching $1 million in assets under management, then $5 million, then $10 million. Each achievement brought new demands, rather than the promised independence. Catherine had accommodated these requests partly from genuine desire to support her husband's success, but also because she had gradually lost confidence in her own professional capabilities. Years away from her field had created knowledge gaps that seemed increasingly difficult to bridge. Marcus reinforced these insecurities by regularly commenting on how much the business world had changed and how challenging it would be for her to re-enter after such a long absence. The isolation had been equally gradual. Marcus expressed concern that Catherine's volunteer activities were causing her to neglect their social obligations to his clients and professional associates. He worried that her stories about working with homeless individuals and domestic violence survivors made their dinner party guests uncomfortable. He suggested that she could make a greater impact by helping him build wealth that could later be donated to worthy causes. Each argument seemed reasonable in isolation, but the cumulative effect had been to separate Catherine from any independent sources of identity, purpose, or support. She had become Mrs. Marcus Sterling, a role that required her to be elegant, agreeable, and available to enhance her husband's professional image whenever needed. The women's shelter had been Catherine's first step toward reclaiming her sense of purpose. She had begun volunteering 18 months earlier, initially just serving meals and organizing donations. However, her economic background had quickly become apparent to the shelter's director, Maria Santos, who asked Catherine to help develop financial literacy programming for their residents. The work had reignited Catherine's passion for economic empowerment and social justice. She discovered that many women remained trapped in abusive relationships, primarily because they lacked the financial knowledge and resources necessary for independent living. Catherine began developing comprehensive workshops covering budgeting, credit repair, small business development, and investment basics specifically tailored for women transitioning out of crisis situations. The program's success had been remarkable. Over the past year, Catherine had helped 37 women develop financial independence strategies that enabled them to leave abusive situations and build stable lives for themselves and their children. The shelter had received recognition from the state for innovative programming, and other organizations had requested Catherine's assistance in replicating the model. This success had created tension with Marcus, who viewed Catherine's growing expertise and recognition as threats to their marriage dynamic. He began making disparaging comments about her playing social worker, and expressed frustration that she was becoming too involved with people whose problems were self-created. His demands for her to prioritize his business activities had intensified correspondingly. The current crisis represented the culmination of months of increasing conflict over Catherine's volunteer commitments. Marcus had issued increasingly direct ultimatums, demanding that she choose between her marriage and her hobby. Catherine had attempted to negotiate compromises, but Marcus refused to acknowledge the legitimacy of her work or the importance it held for her sense of purpose and identity. Standing in the grocery store as the blizzard raged outside, Catherine realized that this moment represented more than just a transportation crisis. Marcus had abandoned her in life-threatening conditions because she had refused to abandon women who depended on her support. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. He was willing to endanger her safety to reassert control over her choices and priorities. The practical implications of her situation were becoming increasingly serious. The store would close within 2 hours, and the temperature outside was dropping toward -20 degrees Fahrenheit. The wind chill would make exposure fatal within minutes for anyone without proper winter survival equipment. Catherine was wearing business casual clothing suitable for a quick shopping trip, not the specialized gear required for survival in extreme weather conditions. Her phone buzzed with another message from Marcus, Stop being dramatic and call an Uber. This tantrum has gone on long enough." Catherine stared at the message in disbelief. Marcus apparently believed that ride-sharing services would be operating during a declared weather emergency. Or perhaps, he simply did not care whether she could actually find safe transportation. His message demonstrated a complete disconnection from both the severity of the weather conditions and the potential consequences of his actions. She attempted to open the Uber application, confirming what she had expected. No drivers were available, and the service had posted warnings advising against travel requests during the emergency. Traditional taxi companies had suspended operations until road conditions improved. Public transportation had been shut down indefinitely. Catherine walked to the store's front windows and observed the parking lot, where snow was accumulating at a rate that made individual vehicles barely distinguishable from the landscape. The few cars remaining in the lot were already buried under several feet of snow, their owners presumably having found alternative shelter arrangements. The weight of her isolation began to settle over her like the snow accumulating outside. She had built her entire adult life around supporting Marcus's ambitions and maintaining his preferred lifestyle, gradually surrendering her own professional identity and personal relationships in the process. Now, when she needed support most desperately, she discovered that she had no one to call. The realization was both terrifying and illuminating. Catherine understood that this crisis was forcing her to confront the true nature of her marriage, and the extent to which she had allowed herself to become dependent on someone who viewed her as a possession rather than a partner. Marcus's willingness to endanger her life over a disagreement about volunteer work revealed a level of callousness that she could no longer rationalize or excuse. However, as the immediate shock began to fade, Catherine felt something unexpected stirring within her. Not panic or despair, but a familiar sense of analytical clarity that had served her well during her academic and early professional years. She began mentally inventorying her resources and options, approaching her crisis with the same systematic thinking she applied to helping shelter residents develop independent strategies. Catherine realized that she possessed assets and capabilities that Marcus had systematically discouraged her from recognizing or developing. Her MBA education remained valid despite years of disuse. Her experience developing financial literacy programs demonstrated that she retained the ability to create practical solutions to complex problems. Her volunteer work had connected her with a network of capable, resourceful women who understood survival and resilience in ways that Marcus's affluent professional circle never would. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Most importantly, Catherine understood that this crisis was offering her an opportunity to reclaim agency over her own life. Marcus had created this situation to demonstrate her helplessness and dependence, but his actions had actually freed her from the obligation to protect his feelings or maintain their marriage facade. For the first time in years, she was free to make decisions based on her own needs and values rather than his expectations and demands. Catherine pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts, looking past the social acquaintances from Marcus's professional circle toward names she had not considered calling in months or even years. Her search stopped at a contact labeled simply Maria Santos, shelter director. Catherine had Maria's personal number because of the workshop scheduling, but she hesitated to call someone she knew primarily in a professional context. However, she also knew that Maria had survived her own experiences with domestic violence and understood better than most the importance of reaching out when safety was at stake. In an understatement. The call connected on the second ring. "Catherine, is everything all right?" Maria's voice carried immediate concern, recognizing that an evening call during a blizzard was unlikely to be routine. "Maria, I am sorry to call you like this," Catherine began, her voice steadier than she had expected. "I am stranded at Riverside Grocery with no way to get home safely. My husband left me here during the storm, and I do not have anyone else I can call." The silence that followed lasted only seconds, but Catherine could hear the wheels turning in Maria's mind. "Catherine, you stay exactly where you are. Do not attempt to leave that building under any circumstances. I am sending someone to get you right now. Maria, the roads are completely impassable. I cannot ask anyone to risk their safety. Catherine, Maria interrupted firmly, you are not asking. I am telling you that help is coming. What you are experiencing right now is not about weather or transportation. You understand what this is. And you know that women in our community do not leave each other stranded. Give me 20 minutes. As Catherine ended the call, she felt something she had not experienced in years. The certainty that someone would keep their word to help her, without conditions or expectations of reciprocal benefit. Maria's response had been immediate and unconditional, driven by values that placed human welfare above convenience or personal cost. Catherine walked back toward the store's front windows, watching the storm intensify while Maria's words echoed in her mind. You understand what this is? Catherine did understand, perhaps for the first time with complete clarity. Marcus had not simply left her without transportation. He had demonstrated that her safety and well-being were expendable when they conflicted with his desire for control. The 22 years of gradual isolation, systematic discouragement, and emotional manipulation crystallized into a moment of absolute understanding. Catherine Sterling had been living in an emotionally abusive marriage that had slowly eroded her independence, confidence, and connections to supportive relationships. The blizzard had not created her crisis. It had simply made visible the vulnerability that Marcus's behavior had been creating for years. As she watched the storm rage outside, Catherine felt neither fear nor despair, but rather the first stirrings of something that had been dormant for decades. Her own strength, intelligence, and determination to build a life aligned with her values rather than someone else's expectations. Marcus's abandonment had been intended as punishment, but it was becoming the catalyst for her liberation. The headlights that appeared through the snow 23 minutes later belonged to a black Mercedes sedan that navigated the treacherous parking lot with surprising confidence, pulling up directly in front of the store's entrance. The driver who emerged from the black Mercedes was not what Catherine had expected. A tall, dignified African-American man in his 50s stepped out wearing a professional chauffeur's uniform and a heavy winter coat that suggested he was well prepared for emergency conditions. He moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to navigating challenging situations, approaching the store entrance with purposeful strides despite the treacherous conditions. "Mrs. Sterling?" he asked as he entered the store, removing his cap respectfully. "I am James Washington. Mrs. Santos sent me to bring you to safety." Catherine studied his face, noting the genuine concern in his eyes and the professional demeanor that spoke of years of experience in service roles. "Mr. Washington, I cannot believe anyone would venture out in these conditions. This is incredibly dangerous." James smiled with quiet confidence. "Ma'am, I have been driving in Chicago weather for 32 years, including as an emergency medical technician before I began my current profession. This Mercedes is equipped with all-wheel drive, snow chains, and emergency medical supplies." More importantly, Mrs. Santos made it very clear that leaving you here was not an option we would consider. As they prepared to leave the store, James insisted on helping Catherine with her coat and ensuring she had gloves and a warm scarf from his emergency kit. His attention to these details demonstrated the kind of professional competence that Catherine had rarely encountered in her social circle, where status often mattered more than actual capability. The vehicle's interior was immaculately maintained and equipped with features that surprised Catherine. Beyond the expected luxury appointments, she noticed communication equipment, emergency supplies, and what appeared to be a mobile office setup with laptop computers and filing systems. This was clearly not a typical luxury car service, but rather a sophisticated mobile operation. "Mr. Washington," Catherine said as they carefully navigated the snow-covered parking lot, "may I ask about your background? Your preparation for this rescue was remarkably thorough." James glanced at her in the rearview mirror with a slight smile. "Mrs. Sterling, I operate a private transportation and personal security service for individuals who require reliable, discreet assistance. Many of my clients are women in transition who need dependable support during challenging periods in their lives." The implications of his words began to sink in as Catherine processed this information. Women in transition was a term commonly used in domestic violence advocacy to describe individuals leaving abusive relationships. Maria Santos had not simply called a taxi service or asked a volunteer to help. She had contacted a professional who specialized in providing secure transportation for women in vulnerable situations. Mrs. Santos has referred several clients to my services over the past 2 years, James continued as they reached the main road, which he navigated with remarkable skill despite the hazardous conditions. She explained that you might benefit from understanding the full range of resources available to women who are ready to make significant changes in their circumstances. Catherine realized that Maria had recognized something in their brief phone conversation that Catherine herself was only beginning to acknowledge. The shelter director had understood immediately that Marcus's abandonment during the blizzard represented more than a transportation emergency. It was a dangerous escalation in a pattern of controlling behavior that required professional intervention. Mr. Washington, I want to be clear that my situation is not the same as the women who typically use the shelter's services, Catherine said carefully. My husband and I had an argument, but I am not a victim of domestic violence. James maintained his professional demeanor while choosing his words thoughtfully. Mrs. Sterling, in my experience, women who find themselves stranded without resources during family conflicts often share more similarities than they initially recognize. My role is simply to provide safe transportation and information about available services, not to make judgments about anyone's circumstances. His diplomatic response allowed Catherine to maintain her dignity while gently challenging her assumptions about domestic abuse. She had always imagined domestic violence as physical assault accompanied by obvious signs of trauma. The possibility that emotional manipulation, financial control, and isolation might constitute forms of abuse had never occurred to her in relation to her own marriage. As they drove through the storm, James shared information about his business that further illuminated the sophisticated support network that existed for women in crisis situations. His company provided not only transportation but also temporary security, document storage, communication services, and coordination with legal and financial professionals who specialized in helping women establish independence. Many of our clients are professional women with advanced education and substantial assets, James explained. The challenges they face are often more complex than simply finding shelter or employment. They need help navigating divorce proceedings, asset protection, child custody arrangements, and career re-establishment while maintaining their safety and privacy. Catherine began to understand that her isolation and dependence were not unique circumstances, but rather common patterns that affected women from all socioeconomic backgrounds. The women's shelter where she volunteered represented only one segment of a much larger population of women who needed support in leaving controlling relationships and building independent lives. Mrs. Santos mentioned that you have been developing financial literacy programming at the shelter, James continued. She believes your expertise could be valuable to a broader range of women who need help understanding their economic options during relationship transitions. The conversation revealed that Catherine's volunteer work had been noticed and valued by professionals who understood its broader significance. While Marcus had dismissed her efforts as irrelevant hobby activities, others recognized her developing expertise in an area with substantial social impact and professional potential. James handed Catherine a business card that identified him as the owner of Sanctuary Transport Services, with additional credentials in executive protection and crisis management. The card included references to partnerships with law firms, financial planning services, and counseling organizations that specialized in serving women during life transitions. Mrs. Sterling, I want you to understand that tonight's assistance comes with no obligations or expectations, James said as they approached her neighborhood. However, if you decide that you need additional support or information about available resources, Mrs. Santos and I are prepared to help you explore your options. Catherine studied the business card while contemplating the evening's revelations. She had begun the day believing herself isolated and dependent, but discovered that she had access to a sophisticated network of professionals who were prepared to support her if she chose to pursue independence. The contrast with Marcus's abandonment could not have been more stark. As they turned onto her street, Catherine noticed that the lights were on in her house, and Marcus's Range Rover was parked in the driveway, already partially buried by accumulating snow. The sight of her home filled her with conflicting emotions. relief at returning to familiar surroundings mixed with apprehension about confronting Marcus after his abandonment. "Mrs. Sterling," James said as they pulled into her driveway, "I want to give you something before you go inside." He handed her a small device that looked like a sophisticated mobile phone. "This is a secure communication device that connects directly to our emergency response system. If you ever feel unsafe or need immediate assistance, pressing the red button will bring help within minutes." Catherine accepted the device with surprise and gratitude. "Mr. Washington, I cannot possibly accept something this expensive. Tonight's rescue was already more than I could have hoped for. Ma'am, this device is provided as a community service, funded by donations from women who have used our services and want to ensure that help is available to others who might need it," James explained. "Keeping it does not obligate you to use our services, but it ensures that you have options if your circumstances change." As Catherine prepared to leave the vehicle, James offered one final piece of guidance. "Mrs. Sterling, I have learned from 30 years of helping people in difficult situations that recognizing your options is the first step toward reclaiming control over your life. You have more resources and support available than you realize, but only you can decide whether and when to use them." Catherine thanked James profusely before making her way through the snow to her front door. As she reached for her keys, she could hear the Mercedes backing out of the driveway, but she knew that James's assistance represented more than just transportation. It was her introduction to a world of possibilities she had never known existed. Inside the house, Marcus was waiting in the living room with a glass of scotch and the local news weather coverage playing on their large television. He looked up with an expression that mixed relief with annoyance, clearly having expected her to arrive home subdued and apologetic. "Catherine, finally," he said without getting up from his chair. "I was beginning to think you were going to be stubborn enough to spend the night at that store. I hope this experience has helped you understand the consequences of defying reasonable requests." Catherine stood in the entryway, still wearing her coat, and holding the secure communication device that James had provided. Looking at Marcus, comfortable in his chair, confident in his control over the situation, she realized how completely he had misunderstood what had transpired during her absence. "Marcus, I need to tell you about my evening," Catherine said calmly, removing her coat and sitting across from him. "I was not sitting alone feeling sorry for myself. I was rescued by a professional driver who operates a business specifically designed to help women in situations like mine." Marcus's expression shifted from smugness to confusion. "What are you talking about? You called an Uber driver? I told you that was available." "No, Marcus. I called Maria Santos at the women's shelter, and she immediately sent a professional security and transportation service to bring me home safely," Catherine explained. "The driver, Mr. James Washington, operates a company that specializes in helping women establish independence during relationship transitions." The implications of Catherine's words began to register with Marcus, and his confident demeanor started to crack. "Catherine, you are being ridiculous. You called the homeless shelter about our private marriage issues? Do you realize how inappropriate that was?" Catherine recognized Marcus's attempt to reframe the situation and make her feel guilty for seeking help outside their marriage. However, her conversation with James had provided her with language and perspective that helped her understand the dynamics at play. "Marcus, what I realized tonight is that abandoning your spouse during a life-threatening weather emergency is not a normal marriage disagreement," Catherine said steadily. "It is dangerous behavior that required professional intervention to resolve safely." Marcus stood up abruptly, his face reddening with anger. "Catherine, you are completely overreacting to what was obviously just a way to help you understand priorities. I knew you would find a way home, eventually. You are acting like I tried to hurt you." "Marcus, the temperature outside is 20 degrees below zero with 60-mile-per-hour winds," Catherine replied, her voice remaining calm despite his escalating agitation. "Leaving someone without transportation in those conditions is inherently dangerous, regardless of your intentions." The secure communication device in Catherine's pocket felt like a tangible reminder that she was no longer as isolated and powerless as Marcus believed. The evening's events had introduced her to resources and support systems that existed beyond his knowledge or control, fundamentally altering the dynamic between them. Marcus began pacing around the living room, clearly agitated by Catherine's unexpected composure and her refusal to accept his characterization of the evening's events. Catherine, I think you need to consider whether talking to outsiders about our private business is really the kind of behavior that supports a strong marriage. Catherine recognized the familiar pattern of Marcus attempting to isolate her from outside perspectives and support. However, her interaction with James and her understanding of the professional network available to women in her situation had given her confidence to resist this manipulation. Marcus, what I need to consider is whether a marriage where one partner abandons the other during dangerous conditions is actually a marriage worth supporting, Catherine said quietly but firmly. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the wind howling outside their windows. Catherine could see Marcus processing the implications of her statement, recognizing that something fundamental had shifted during her absence. She was no longer the apologetic, accommodating wife he had expected to find when he returned home. The secure communication device remained in Catherine's pocket, a symbol of the hidden resources and support that had been revealed during her moment of greatest apparent vulnerability. Marcus's intended punishment had instead become Catherine's introduction to a world of possibilities that would transform everything about their relationship and her understanding of her own capabilities. The blizzard continued to rage outside, but inside their home, a different kind of storm was beginning to form, one that would ultimately prove far more transformative than any weather emergency could ever be. 3 days after the blizzard rescue, Catherine received an unexpected phone call that would fundamentally alter the trajectory of her life. Dr. Rebecca Chen, director of the Metropolitan Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative, was calling to discuss what she described as an extraordinary opportunity for collaboration that could transform how we address financial independence for women transitioning out of difficult circumstances. Catherine had never heard of Dr. Chen or her organization, but the caller explained that she had learned about Catherine's work through Maria Santos and James Washington, both of whom served on the advisory board of her nonprofit institute. The conversation that followed would reveal the existence of a sophisticated network of professionals who had been observing Catherine's volunteer efforts and recognizing potential that she herself had not fully understood. Mrs. Sterling, I have been reviewing the curriculum you developed for the women's shelter, and I must tell you that your approach to financial literacy education represents some of the most innovative thinking I have encountered in 15 years of working in this field, Dr. Chen began. Your integration of practical budgeting skills with long-term wealth-building strategies addresses gaps that most programs completely overlook. Catherine was surprised by the recognition, as she had developed her workshop materials through trial and error, based on the specific needs she observed among shelter residents. Her academic background in economics had provided the theoretical foundation, but the practical applications had emerged from countless conversations with women who faced unique financial challenges that traditional educational programs did not address. Dr. Chen explained that her organization had been seeking someone with exactly Catherine's combination of advanced economic education and grassroots experience, working with women in crisis situations. The Metropolitan Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative operated with a budget of $2.3 million annually, providing financial education, microloan programs, and business development support to women throughout the Chicago metropolitan area. We have been operating for 8 years with significant success in helping individual women achieve economic stability, Dr. Chen continued. However, we have reached the limits of what we can accomplish with our current approach. We need someone who can help us develop scalable programming that addresses the sophisticated financial challenges facing educated women who are establishing independence after years of economic dependence. The conversation revealed that Catherine's volunteer work had attracted attention far beyond the women's shelter, where she taught her workshops. Dr. Chen had received inquiries from family court judges, divorce attorneys, and social workers who had observed the remarkable success rates among women who had participated in Catherine's financial literacy programming. These professionals were seeking similar resources for their own clients who faced comparable challenges. Catherine learned that Dr. Chen held a doctorate in economics from the University of Chicago and had previously worked as a senior policy analyst for the Federal Reserve Bank before transitioning to nonprofit leadership. Her academic credentials and professional experience in monetary policy provided a level of expertise that complemented Catherine's practical experience in financial education and community programming. Mrs. Sterling, I want to propose a partnership that could benefit both of our professional objectives while creating significant social impact, Dr. Chen said. I am prepared to offer you the position of Associate Director for Curriculum Development, which would involve leading the design and implementation of our expanded financial empowerment programming. The offer was substantial and unexpected. The position would provide Catherine with a salary of $85,000 annually, comprehensive benefits, professional development opportunities, and the resources to develop programming that could reach thousands of women rather than the dozens she currently served through her volunteer efforts. More importantly, it represented recognition of her expertise and potential for leadership in a field that aligned perfectly with her values and interests. Catherine explained that she would need time to consider the offer carefully, as it would represent a significant change in her personal and professional circumstances. Dr. Chen suggested that they meet in person to discuss the opportunity in greater detail and to allow Catherine to evaluate whether the organizational culture and mission aligned with her own professional objectives. The meeting was scheduled for the following afternoon at the initiative's headquarters in downtown Chicago. Catherine agreed to the appointment while acknowledging privately that accepting such a position would require fundamental changes in her relationship with Marcus, who had consistently opposed her professional development and would likely view this opportunity as a direct challenge to his authority over her career decisions. That evening, Catherine approached Marcus about the phone call and the potential employment opportunity. She presented the information objectively, emphasizing the professional recognition it represented and the financial contribution it would make to their household income. However, Marcus's response was immediate and unequivocally negative. "Catherine, this is exactly the kind of distraction that I have been concerned about," Marcus declared. "You have allowed your volunteer activities to give you unrealistic ideas about your professional capabilities. Taking a job with some nonprofit organization would be a complete waste of your education and a source of embarrassment for both of us." Marcus argued that Catherine's time would be better invested in supporting his business development efforts, which he claimed were approaching a breakthrough that would require her full attention and participation. He suggested that her desire for outside employment reflected dissatisfaction with their marriage that could be resolved through greater focus on their shared objectives rather than pursuing individual interests. Catherine recognized the familiar pattern of Marcus attempting to reframe her aspirations as evidence of personal shortcomings or relationship problems, rather than acknowledging their legitimacy as professional opportunities. However, her conversation with Dr. Chen and her growing awareness of her own capabilities provided her with confidence to resist this manipulation. "Marcus, this opportunity represents recognition of expertise that I have developed through years of education and practical experience," Catherine replied calmly. "Dr. Chen specifically sought me out because of the success of programming that I designed and implemented independently. This is not a distraction from my capabilities, but rather an application of them." The argument that followed revealed the depth of Marcus's opposition to Catherine's professional independence. He expressed concern that her employment outside the home would interfere with her availability for his business entertaining, create conflicts with their social obligations, and potentially expose their personal business to outsiders who might not understand their relationship dynamics. More significantly, Marcus revealed that he viewed Catherine's professional success as a potential threat to their marriage structure. He argued that women who achieved independent income and professional recognition often became dissatisfied with their domestic responsibilities and developed unrealistic expectations about their role in family decision-making processes. Catherine realized that Marcus's opposition was not based on concern for her well-being or their relationship quality, but rather on his fear of losing control over her choices and priorities. His arguments demonstrated that he viewed her professional development as inherently threatening to the power dynamic that had characterized their marriage for over 2 decades. The conversation concluded with Marcus issuing an ultimatum that Catherine characterized as familiar territory in their relationship. He demanded that she decline Dr. Chen's offer and recommit herself to supporting his business activities exclusively. He suggested that her desire for outside employment indicated that she no longer appreciated the lifestyle and security that his success had provided for their family. Catherine agreed to consider his perspective carefully while privately recognizing that his demands represented the same pattern of control and isolation that had characterized their relationship for years. The difference was that she now understood these dynamics as problematic rather than normal aspects of marriage, and she had access to professional support that could help her evaluate her options objectively. The next afternoon, Catherine arrived at the Metropolitan Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative headquarters to find an organization that exceeded her expectations in both sophistication and impact. The offices occupied an entire floor of a downtown high-rise, with modern conference facilities, computer labs, library resources, and private consultation spaces designed to serve women from diverse backgrounds and circumstances. Dr. Chen introduced Catherine to the organization's staff, which included economists, social workers, business development specialists, and program coordinators who possessed impressive credentials and extensive experience in women's empowerment programming. The team had collectively served over 3,000 women during the previous year, with measurable success rates that included 78% of participants achieving economic independence within 18 months of program completion. The tour revealed that the initiative operated multiple programs simultaneously, including financial education workshops, small business development support, career transition counseling, and advocacy for policy changes that affected women's economic opportunities. The organization maintained partnerships with major financial institutions, law firms, universities, and government agencies that provided resources and credibility for their programming efforts. Catherine learned that her potential role would involve leading the development of advanced financial education curricula specifically designed for women with professional backgrounds who were establishing independence after years of economic dependence on spouses or family members. This population represented a growing demographic that required specialized programming addressing complex issues such as asset division, credit reestablishment, retirement planning, and business development. Mrs. Sterling, what distinguishes your approach from existing financial education programming is your understanding that women in transition need more than basic budgeting skills, Dr. Chen explained, as they reviewed sample curricula from Catherine's shelter workshops. They need sophisticated strategies for building wealth, protecting assets, and developing multiple income streams that provide long-term security. The conversation revealed that Dr. Chen had spent months researching Catherine's background and achievements, including her academic work at Northwestern University, her early career potential before marriage, and the innovative programming she had developed through her volunteer efforts. Dr. Chen had concluded that Catherine possessed a unique combination of theoretical knowledge, practical experience, and personal understanding that could not be easily replicated. The partnership that Dr. Chen proposed would leverage Catherine's expertise while providing her with resources, professional development opportunities, and institutional support that could amplify her impact exponentially. The initiatives established relationships with funding sources, research institutions, and policy organizations would enable Catherine to develop programming that could influence systemic changes affecting women's economic opportunities. Catherine realized that the opportunity represented more than employment. It was an invitation to join a community of professionals who shared her commitment to women's empowerment and possessed the resources to create meaningful social change. The collaboration would provide her with colleagues, mentors, and professional networks that could support her continued growth, while enabling her to contribute to work that aligned perfectly with her values and interests. The financial aspects of the position were equally compelling. The $85,000 annual salary would provide Catherine with economic independence that could reduce her dependence on Marcus's income and decision-making authority. The comprehensive benefits package included health insurance, retirement contributions, professional development funding, and flexible scheduling that would allow her to maintain her volunteer commitments at the women's shelter. More importantly, the position would establish Catherine's professional credibility and provide her with a career trajectory that could lead to increased responsibilities, leadership opportunities, and potential for even greater impact in the field of women's economic empowerment. Dr. Chen indicated that successful performance in the associate director role could lead to promotion to executive director within 3 to 5 years, as she was planning to transition to a policy research position with a university-based institute. As the meeting concluded, Catherine understood that she faced a decision that would fundamentally alter her life trajectory. Accepting Dr. Chen's offer would require confronting Marcus's opposition and potentially destabilizing their marriage, but declining it would mean abandoning the most significant professional opportunity she had encountered since completing her graduate education. Dr. Chen provided Catherine with detailed information about the position, including job descriptions, organizational charts, sample projects, and references from current staff members who could discuss their experiences working for the initiative. She also offered to arrange meetings with women who had participated in the organization's programming and could speak to the impact of the work Catherine would be leading. The decision timeline Dr. Chen proposed was reasonable but definitive. Catherine would have 2 weeks to evaluate the opportunity and provide her answer, which would allow the organization to begin the next phase of their planning process if she accepted the position, or to pursue alternative candidates if she declined. Catherine left the meeting with a comprehensive understanding of the opportunity and a clear recognition that she possessed the qualifications and support necessary to succeed in the role. The partnership with Dr. Chen represented exactly the type of professional relationship she had never imagined possible: a collaboration with someone who recognized her capabilities, shared her values, and possessed the resources to help her achieve her potential for meaningful social impact. The drive home through downtown Chicago provided Catherine with time to process the implications of the day's discussions. She understood that accepting the position would represent more than a career change. It would be a declaration of independence from the limitations that had constrained her professional development for over 2 decades. The secure communication device that James Washington had provided remained in her purse, a tangible reminder that she had access to support systems that could help her navigate whatever challenges might arise from pursuing her authentic professional aspirations, rather than continuing to subordinate them to Marcus's preferences and expectations. Marcus Sterling had built his reputation as a financial advisor through careful cultivation of his professional image and strategic networking within Chicago's affluent business community. His success depended not only on his technical expertise but also on his ability to project stability, control, and conventional family values that reassured clients about his judgment and reliability. Catherine's emerging independence represented a direct threat to this carefully constructed professional persona. The morning after Catherine's meeting with Dr. Rebecca Chen, Marcus initiated what would become a systematic campaign to undermine her confidence and isolate her from the support systems she had recently discovered. His approach was methodical and sophisticated, drawing on 22 years of intimate knowledge about Catherine's insecurities, aspirations, and emotional vulnerabilities. Marcus began by contacting his brother-in-law, David Morrison, who served as a senior partner at Morrison & Associates, one of Chicago's most prestigious family law firms. David had handled divorce proceedings for several of Marcus's clients over the years, and maintained close relationships with family court judges, custody evaluators, and financial investigators who specialized in high-asset divorce cases. The conversation between Marcus and David was framed as a preventative consultation about protecting family assets in the event that Catherine's recent behavior indicated potential marital instability. Marcus presented Catherine's volunteer work, her rescue during the blizzard, and her job interview as evidence of emotional instability that could threaten their financial security and his business reputation. "David, I need you to understand that Catherine has been behaving erratically since she started volunteering with homeless people and domestic violence victims," Marcus explained during their lunch meeting at the university club. "She has developed unrealistic ideas about her professional capabilities and has begun making contact with organizations that specialize in helping women leave their marriages." David Morrison was a shrewd attorney who had built his practice on representing wealthy clients during contentious divorce proceedings. His expertise lay in protecting assets and minimizing financial exposure for his clients, often through aggressive tactics that challenged opposing parties' claims to marital property, income, and support. Marcus's consultation with David resulted in a legal strategy designed to limit Catherine's options for establishing independence while protecting Marcus's business assets from potential divorce proceedings. David recommended several immediate steps that Marcus could implement to strengthen his position in any future legal conflicts. The first recommendation involved documenting Catherine's recent behavior as evidence of mental health concerns that could affect her judgment and decision-making capacity. David suggested that Marcus maintain detailed records of Catherine's activities, relationships, and statements that could be presented as evidence of emotional instability if legal proceedings became necessary. The second recommendation focused on asset protection strategies that would minimize Catherine's access to marital property and income streams. David advised Marcus to restructure his business ownership through trusts and corporate entities that would be difficult for Catherine to claim during divorce proceedings, while establishing clear documentation that Catherine had not contributed to business development or success. The third recommendation involved challenging Catherine's potential employment with the Metropolitan Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative by raising questions about the organization's legitimacy, funding sources, and political affiliations. David suggested that Marcus could present Catherine's association with such organizations as evidence of poor judgment that could affect her credibility in legal proceedings. Marcus implemented these recommendations immediately, beginning with a comprehensive review of their financial accounts, insurance policies, and estate planning documents. He discovered that Catherine's name appeared on several investment accounts and property deeds that would need to be restructured to limit her access to these assets. The asset protection process required Marcus to work with forensic accountants and tax attorneys who specialized in shielding wealth from divorce proceedings. These professionals advised him to establish offshore trusts, transfer business ownership to family members, and restructure investment accounts to minimize Catherine's legal claims to marital property. Marcus also initiated surveillance of Catherine's activities by hiring a private investigation firm that specialized in documenting behavior during marital disputes. The investigators were instructed to maintain detailed records of Catherine's meetings, phone calls, financial transactions, and social interactions that could be presented as evidence during potential legal proceedings. The investigation revealed information that surprised and concerned Marcus. Catherine's rescue during the blizzard had not been an isolated incident, but rather part of a sophisticated support network that included professionals with extensive experience helping women establish independence from controlling relationships. James Washington's background check revealed that he was a former police detective and military veteran who had established sanctuary transport services specifically to provide security and transportation for women leaving abusive relationships. His client base included judges, attorneys, business executives, and other professional women who had required discreet assistance during relationship transitions. Dr. Rebecca Chen's background investigation showed that she held advanced degrees from prestigious universities and had previously worked in senior positions with federal financial institutions before establishing her nonprofit organization. The Metropolitan Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative maintained partnerships with major banks, law firms, and government agencies that provided substantial credibility and resources for their programming. Marcus realized that Catherine had gained access to a professional network that possessed significantly more expertise and resources than he had initially understood. These individuals were not social workers or volunteers, but rather accomplished professionals who could provide Catherine with sophisticated support for establishing independence. The private investigators also discovered that Catherine had been conducting research about divorce proceedings, asset protection, and women's legal rights during marriage dissolution. Her internet search history revealed visits to websites operated by family law attorneys, financial planners, and organizations that specialized in helping women prepare for divorce. Marcus interpreted this research as evidence that Catherine was actively planning to leave their marriage, rather than simply exploring professional opportunities. The discovery intensified his determination to implement preventative measures that would limit her ability to pursue independence successfully. Marcus's next step involved enlisting support from his professional network to create pressure against Catherine's potential employment with Dr. Chen's organization. He contacted clients and colleagues who served on nonprofit boards, contributed to charitable organizations, or maintained relationships with funding sources that supported women's empowerment programming. The campaign Marcus orchestrated was subtle but systematic. He expressed concerns to influential contacts about organizations that encouraged women to leave stable marriages in favor of uncertain career prospects. He suggested that such organizations might be promoting unrealistic expectations about women's professional capabilities while undermining family stability and traditional values. Marcus also reached out to competing financial advisory firms to share information about Catherine's activities and suggest that her association with women's advocacy organizations reflected poorly on his judgment and professionalism. He hoped to create industry pressure that would damage his reputation if Catherine pursued high-profile employment with Dr. Chen's organization. The effort to undermine Catherine's credibility extended to their social circle, where Marcus began sharing carefully crafted narratives about Catherine's recent behavior that portrayed her as emotionally unstable and influenced by radical feminist organizations. He expressed concern for her well-being while suggesting that her volunteer work had exposed her to negative influences that were affecting her judgment. Marcus's campaign reached its most sophisticated level when he contacted the board of directors of the Metropolitan Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative to express concerns about Catherine's suitability for employment with their organization. He presented himself as a concerned husband who worried that Catherine's emotional state made her inappropriate for positions involving financial responsibility and client contact. The communication to the initiative's board was carefully worded to avoid obvious defamation, while raising questions about Catherine's mental health, professional competence, and potential liability for the organization. Marcus suggested that Catherine's recent behavior indicated psychological instability that could create problems for both clients and colleagues. Marcus's efforts extended to challenging the funding sources that supported Dr. Chen's organization. He contacted foundation officers, government agency administrators, and corporate executives who provided financial support for women's empowerment programming. His communications suggested that organizations promoting divorce and family disruption might not align with their missions of supporting community stability and family values. The systematic nature of Marcus's opposition demonstrated the lengths to which he was prepared to go to maintain control over Catherine's choices and opportunities. His campaign involved legal professionals, private investigators, financial advisors, and social contacts who could create multiple forms of pressure designed to discourage Catherine's pursuit of independence. Marcus also implemented changes within their household that were designed to increase Catherine's dependence on his support, while limiting her access to resources that could facilitate independence. He restructured their banking arrangements to require his approval for significant expenditures, changed passwords on shared accounts, and limited Catherine's access to credit cards and financial information. The domestic control measures extended to monitoring Catherine's communications, restricting her use of their vehicles, and requiring detailed explanations of her activities and whereabouts. Marcus presented these changes as temporary security measures necessitated by Catherine's recent association with unknown individuals who might pose safety risks. Marcus's campaign also involved attempts to discredit the professionals who had supported Catherine during the Blizzard rescue. He filed complaints with regulatory agencies about James Washington's transportation business, suggesting that the company might be operating without proper licenses or insurance coverage. He also contacted professional associations to raise questions about Dr. Chen's credentials and the legitimacy of her organization's nonprofit status. The escalation of Marcus's opposition revealed the sophisticated resources available to wealthy individuals who sought to maintain control over family members pursuing independence. His access to legal professionals, financial advisors, private investigators, and influential contacts provided him with capabilities that most controlling spouses could not marshal. However, Marcus's aggressive response also demonstrated the extent to which Catherine's emerging independence threatened the power structure that had characterized their marriage. His willingness to invest substantial time, money, and professional capital in opposing her career development revealed that he viewed her success as an existential threat to their relationship dynamic. The irony of Marcus's situation was that his efforts to prevent Catherine's independence were simultaneously validating the concerns that domestic violence professionals had raised about his behavior. His systematic campaign to isolate, monitor, and control Catherine provided clear evidence of the abusive patterns that James Washington and Dr. Chen had recognized during their initial interactions with her. Marcus's opposition also had the unintended consequence of strengthening Catherine's resolve to pursue independence. His extreme reaction to her professional opportunities confirmed that her marriage had become a barrier to her personal and professional development, rather than a source of support and partnership. The sophisticated nature of Marcus's campaign also revealed to Catherine the extent of resources that wealthy controlling spouses could access to maintain dominance over their partners. This understanding helped her appreciate the importance of the professional support network that had emerged to assist her, while recognizing that her situation required equally sophisticated strategies for establishing and protecting her independence. As Marcus's opposition intensified, Catherine realized that her decision about Dr. Chen's employment offer had implications that extended far beyond career development. The choice would determine whether she would continue accepting limitations imposed by someone who viewed her success as threatening, or whether she would pursue her authentic potential despite the challenges that decision would create. The formation of systematic opposition to Catherine's independence marked a crucial turning point in her journey towards self-determination. Marcus's response had elevated their conflict from a personal disagreement to a broader struggle between competing visions of women's roles, professional capabilities, and rights to pursue fulfillment outside traditional domestic responsibilities. Catherine understood that the battle ahead would require all the resources, support, and determination she could marshal, but she also recognized that the stakes involved nothing less than her right to live according to her own values and aspirations, rather than those imposed by someone else's fears and insecurities. Catherine's discovery of Marcus's systematic campaign against her independence marked a pivotal transformation in her approach to their relationship conflict. Rather than continuing to react defensively to his escalating control measures, she recognized the necessity of developing a comprehensive strategy that would protect her interests while positioning her for long-term success and security. The realization that Marcus had enlisted legal professionals, private investigators, and financial advisors in his efforts to undermine her autonomy provided Catherine with crucial intelligence about the scope and sophistication of the opposition she faced. This understanding enabled her to shift from emotional responses to analytical planning, drawing upon the strategic thinking skills that had served her well during her academic and early professional years. Catherine's first strategic decision involved conducting a thorough assessment of her current position, including her assets, liabilities, legal vulnerabilities, and available resources for mounting an effective response to Marcus's campaign. This evaluation required honest acknowledgement of both her strengths and limitations, while identifying areas where professional assistance would be essential for protecting her interests. The asset inventory revealed that Catherine possessed more resources than she had initially recognized, largely due to financial decisions made earlier in their marriage, when Marcus had been more collaborative about joint ownership arrangements. Investment accounts, retirement funds, and property holdings established during the first decade of their marriage included Catherine's name as co-owner, providing her with legal claims that would be difficult for Marcus to challenge successfully. Catherine also discovered that her graduate education and professional development had created intellectual property and credentials that possessed independent value regardless of Marcus's attempts to undermine her credibility. Her curriculum development work for the women's shelter had resulted in copyrighted materials and documented success metrics that demonstrated her expertise in financial education and program management. The strategic planning process led Catherine to recognize that her volunteer work had inadvertently created a comprehensive portfolio of professional accomplishments that could support her transition to independent employment. Documentation of her workshop attendance, participant outcomes, and program evaluations provided objective evidence of her capabilities that would be difficult for Marcus or his representatives to discredit. Catherine's analysis of Marcus's opposition campaign revealed several vulnerabilities in his approach that could be exploited to her advantage. His attempts to discredit her through professional channels demonstrated behavior patterns that could be documented and presented as evidence of harassment and systematic efforts to interfere with her employment opportunities. The legal consultation Catherine arranged with Patricia Hendricks, a senior partner at Davidson & Associates who specialized in high-asset divorce proceedings and domestic relations law, provided crucial guidance about her rights and options for protecting herself against Marcus's increasingly aggressive tactics. Patricia's reputation in family law circles included extensive experience representing professional women during complex divorce proceedings involving substantial assets and business interests. Patricia's initial assessment of Catherine's situation confirmed that Marcus's behavior constituted several forms of legally actionable conduct, including financial manipulation, surveillance without consent, and systematic efforts to interfere with employment opportunities. These actions could form the basis for restraining orders, sanctions for improper conduct, and potentially criminal charges depending on the specific methods his private investigators had employed. The legal strategy Patricia recommended focused on establishing clear documentation of Marcus's controlling behavior while positioning Catherine for optimal outcomes in potential divorce proceedings. This approach required maintaining detailed records of all interactions, implementing security measures to protect Catherine's communications and activities, and developing contingency plans for various scenarios that might unfold as their conflict escalated. Catherine's collaboration with Patricia revealed the importance of timing in family law proceedings, particularly regarding asset protection and child custody considerations. Although Catherine and Marcus had no children, the principles of strategic positioning applied equally to protecting financial interests and establishing credibility for any future legal disputes. The financial planning component of Catherine's strategy involved consultation with Sandra Walsh, a certified financial planner who specialized in helping women achieve economic independence during relationship transitions. Sandra's expertise included asset protection strategies, retirement planning, insurance considerations, and business development support for women establishing independent careers. Sandra's analysis of Catherine's financial position revealed that she possessed sufficient resources to support herself independently for several years, particularly if she accepted employment with Dr. Chen's organization. The combination of her potential salary, existing savings, and investment income would provide economic security while she established her professional credentials and built long-term wealth. The business development aspect of Catherine's strategy emerged from her recognition that Dr. Chen's employment offer represented more than just a job opportunity. It provided a platform for developing expertise and credentials that could lead to consulting work, speaking engagements, and potential business ownership in the field of women's economic empowerment. Catherine began developing a comprehensive professional development plan that positioned her to maximize the career advancement opportunities available through her association with the Metropolitan Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative. This planning included identifying certification programs, professional associations, and networking opportunities that would establish her credentials and visibility within the nonprofit sector. The personal security component of Catherine's strategy addressed the immediate safety concerns created by Marcus's surveillance and monitoring activities. James Washington's consultation provided guidance about protective measures that would safeguard Catherine's communications, movements, and personal information, while she implemented her independence plan. The security protocol James recommended included encrypted communication devices, secure email accounts, alternative transportation arrangements, and procedures for detecting and documenting surveillance activities that Marcus's investigators might be conducting. These measures would protect Catherine's privacy while providing evidence of any inappropriate monitoring that could be used in legal proceedings. Catherine's strategic communications approach required careful management of information sharing to prevent Marcus from anticipating her plans while maintaining relationships with the support network that had emerged to assist her. This balance involved distinguishing between individuals who could be trusted with sensitive information and those who might inadvertently provide Marcus with intelligence about her activities. The professional network expansion strategy focused on building relationships with individuals and organizations that could provide ongoing support for Catherine's career development while protecting her from Marcus's efforts to undermine her credibility. This networking approach emphasized quality relationships with professionals who understood the dynamics of controlling relationships and possessed resources for supporting women during transition periods. Catherine's preparation for potential media attention required developing messaging strategies that would present her situation in professional terms, while avoiding personal details that could be exploited by Marcus or create privacy concerns. Patricia Hendricks advised that high-profile employment with women's advocacy organizations could attract media attention, particularly if Marcus attempted to challenge Catherine's credibility publicly. The timeline development for Catherine's strategy established specific milestones and decision points that would guide her actions over the following months while maintaining flexibility to respond to changing circumstances. This planning recognized that Marcus's opposition might escalate further, requiring adaptive responses that protected Catherine's interests while advancing her independence objectives. Catherine's risk assessment identified potential challenges that could emerge during her transition to independence, including attempts by Marcus to sabotage her employment, financial retaliation, social isolation efforts, and potential escalation to more dangerous forms of control or harassment. Each identified risk included corresponding mitigation strategies and contingency plans. The decision-making framework Catherine developed helped her evaluate choices and opportunities based on their alignment with her long-term objectives while considering immediate safety and security concerns. This framework prioritized decisions that increased her independence and professional credibility, while minimizing exposure to retaliation from Marcus. Catherine's research into Marcus's business operations revealed information that could be strategically valuable during potential divorce proceedings or other legal disputes. His financial advisory practice depended heavily on client relationships and professional reputation within Chicago's business community, creating vulnerabilities that could be leveraged if he continued escalating his opposition to her independence. The documentation strategy Catherine implemented established systematic record-keeping procedures that would preserve evidence of Marcus's controlling behavior while protecting her own interests during any future legal proceedings. This documentation included financial records, communication logs, incident reports, and witness statements that could support her position in family court or other legal forums. Catherine's emotional support strategy recognized that maintaining psychological resilience would be essential for successfully navigating the challenges ahead. This approach included professional counseling, peer support through women's advocacy organizations, and stress management techniques that would help her maintain focus and decision-making clarity under pressure. The advocacy component of Catherine's strategy involved identifying opportunities to share her experience and expertise in ways that would benefit other women facing similar challenges while establishing her credibility as a thought leader in women's economic empowerment. This advocacy work could include speaking engagements, writing opportunities, and volunteer leadership roles that would enhance her professional profile. Catherine's strategic planning also addressed the possibility that reconciliation with Marcus might be achievable if he demonstrated genuine willingness to respect her autonomy and support her professional development. This contingency planning established clear criteria for evaluating any reconciliation overtures while protecting her interests regardless of the ultimate outcome of their relationship. The implementation of Catherine's comprehensive strategy required careful coordination of multiple professionals and resources while maintaining operational security that would prevent Marcus from anticipating her moves or sabotaging her plans. This coordination involved regular communication with her legal, financial, and security advisors while building relationships with potential employers and professional contacts. Catherine's transformation from reactive victim to strategic planner demonstrated her evolution from someone who accommodated others' expectations to someone who actively shaped circumstances to achieve her own objectives. This development represented not only practical preparation for independence but also psychological growth that would serve her throughout her career and personal life. The strategic approach Catherine developed provided her with confidence and clarity about her path forward, while establishing the foundation for long-term success regardless of how her immediate conflict with Marcus resolved. Her comprehensive planning addressed both defensive necessities and offensive opportunities, positioning her to thrive rather than merely survive the challenges ahead. The recognition that she possessed the analytical skills, professional resources, and personal determination necessary to develop and execute sophisticated strategies marked a fundamental shift in Catherine's self-perception and capabilities. She had evolved from someone who sought permission for her choices to someone who took responsibility for creating the circumstances that would enable her to achieve her authentic potential. Catherine's strategic planning had provided her with a comprehensive framework for achieving independence, but the successful implementation of her objectives required building a network of professional relationships that could provide ongoing support, resources, and opportunities for growth. Her experience with Marcus's systematic opposition had demonstrated that individual effort alone would be insufficient to overcome the sophisticated challenges she faced. The network development process began with Catherine's recognition that her volunteer work at the women's shelter had inadvertently connected her with professionals who possessed expertise in areas directly relevant to her transition to independence. Maria Santos, James Washington, and Dr. Rebecca Chen represented only the visible components of a broader community of advocates who had dedicated their careers to supporting women during challenging life transitions. Catherine's first strategic networking initiative involved accepting an invitation to attend the quarterly meeting of the Chicago Women's Professional Alliance, an organization that Dr. Chen had recommended as an valuable resource for women establishing independent careers after extended periods away from the workforce. The alliance membership included attorneys, financial advisors, business executives, nonprofit leaders, and entrepreneurs who shared common interests in advancing women's professional opportunities. The alliance meeting provided Catherine with immediate access to approximately 50 professional women who possessed diverse expertise and extensive connections throughout Chicago's business community. These mentoring relationships provided practical guidance about navigating professional challenges while maintaining personal relationships and addressing the emotional complexities of changing life circumstances. The legal networking component involved Catherine's participation in bar association events and continuing education programs, where she could build relationships with attorneys who specialized in areas relevant to her situation. These connections provided access to legal expertise while establishing relationships that could prove valuable if her conflict with Marcus escalated further. Catherine's collaboration with Patricia Hendricks led to introductions to other family law attorneys who had experience representing professional women during high-asset divorce proceedings. These relationships created a network of legal resources that could provide specialized expertise depending on how Catherine's situation evolved over time. The financial networking expanded Catherine's connections with wealth management professionals who understood the unique challenges facing women during relationship transitions. These relationships provided access to sophisticated financial planning services, while establishing connections with professionals who could provide referrals and recommendations for Catherine's own developing expertise. Catherine's networking strategy also addressed the importance of building relationships with women who had successfully established nonprofit organizations or consulting practices in areas related to her interests. These connections provided models for potential career paths while offering practical guidance about business development, funding strategies, and operational management. The peer support networking involved Catherine's participation in support groups and professional development programs specifically designed for women transitioning to independence after extended periods of marriage. These relationships provided emotional support while connecting Catherine with women who understood the practical and psychological challenges she faced. Catherine's strategic networking included developing relationships with executive recruiters and career counselors who specialized in placing experienced professionals in nonprofit organizations and consulting roles. These connections could provide access to employment opportunities while offering professional guidance about positioning her experience and qualifications effectively. The international networking component involved Catherine's exploration of opportunities to connect with women's empowerment organizations in other countries that had developed innovative approaches to financial education and economic development. These relationships could provide opportunities for travel, cultural exchange, and professional development, while expanding Catherine's understanding of global best practices. Catherine's networking efforts revealed the existence of informal mentorship networks among successful women who regularly supported each other through professional challenges and career transitions. These relationships operated through regular communication, mutual referrals, collaborative projects, and social gatherings that combined professional development with personal friendship. The strategic networking also included Catherine's cultivation of relationships with board members and executive leadership of major nonprofit organizations that operated in areas related to her expertise. These connections could provide opportunities for board service, consulting projects, and potential employment, while establishing Catherine's reputation among influential decision-makers. Catherine's networking strategy addressed the importance of building relationships across different generations and career stages, recognizing that both emerging professionals and experienced leaders could provide valuable perspectives and opportunities. This approach included mentoring younger women while seeking guidance from established professionals who had navigated similar career transitions. The community engagement networking involved Catherine's participation in civic organizations and community development initiatives that addressed issues related to economic empowerment and social justice. These relationships connected her with local leaders while demonstrating her commitment to community service and social impact. Catherine's professional networking extended to building relationships with conference organizers, workshop facilitators, and continuing education providers who could offer opportunities for Catherine to share her expertise through presentations and training programs. These platforms would establish her reputation as a thought leader while providing additional income streams. The technology networking component involved Catherine's engagement with online professional communities and social media platforms that connected women professionals across geographic boundaries. These digital relationships provided access to resources, opportunities, and support networks that transcended local limitations, while enabling Catherine to share her expertise with broader audiences. Catherine's strategic alliance building culminated in her recognition that successful networking required providing value to others, rather than simply seeking support for her own objectives. This understanding led her to offer her expertise and assistance to other women facing similar challenges, while building relationships based on mutual benefit and shared commitment to women's empowerment. The network that emerged from Catherine's strategic relationship-building efforts provided her with resources that extended far beyond any individual connection. The collective knowledge, experience, and influence of her professional network created opportunities for collaboration, advocacy, and systemic change that could benefit countless women facing similar challenges. Catherine's networking success demonstrated that building meaningful professional relationships required authenticity, consistency, and genuine commitment to supporting others' success. The strength of her network reflected her evolution from someone who sought help to someone who provided value while advancing shared objectives that transcended individual interests. The comprehensive network Catherine developed provided her with confidence that she possessed the professional relationships necessary to support her independence while creating opportunities for meaningful social impact. Her strategic networking had transformed her from an isolated individual into a connected professional who could leverage collective resources to achieve ambitious objectives while supporting other women's success. Catherine's methodical investigation into her family's financial records revealed information that fundamentally altered her understanding of Marcus's business operations and their marriage's true financial dynamics. What began as routine preparation for potential divorce proceedings uncovered evidence of systematic deception that extended far beyond the controlling behavior she had already documented. The discovery process commenced when Patricia Hendricks recommended that Catherine conduct a comprehensive inventory of all marital assets, including documents, accounts, and business interests that Marcus might attempt to conceal during divorce proceedings. This investigation required Catherine to examine financial records, tax returns, and business documents that she had previously trusted Marcus to manage without her involvement or oversight. Catherine's review of their joint tax returns spanning the previous 7 years revealed discrepancies that suggested Marcus had been reporting income and expenses that did not align with her understanding of their household finances. The returns indicated business deductions for travel, entertainment, and professional services that exceeded what Catherine believed Marcus's practice generated in revenue, while showing personal income levels that were substantially higher than the amounts Marcus had discussed with her. The investigation into Marcus's business banking records, which Catherine accessed through jointly held accounts that provided her with legal authority to review statements, revealed patterns of financial activity that raised serious questions about the legitimacy of his business operations. Large cash deposits appeared irregularly without corresponding documentation, while substantial transfers to offshore accounts suggested attempts to conceal income from tax authorities. Catherine's examination of Sterling Financial Advisory's client agreements and investment management contracts revealed that Marcus had been charging fees significantly higher than industry standards while providing investment advice that generated poor returns for his clients. Several client accounts showed patterns of excessive trading that appeared designed to generate commission income rather than optimize investment performance. The most disturbing discovery emerged from Catherine's review of correspondence files that Marcus maintained in their home office. Hidden among routine business documents, she found evidence that Marcus had been providing financial advice to clients who were engaged in questionable business activities, including real estate developers who were under investigation for money laundering, and construction contractors who had been cited for systematic tax evasion. The client correspondence revealed that Marcus had developed expertise in sophisticated financial structures designed to conceal income and assets from regulatory oversight. His services included establishing offshore trusts, creating shell corporations, and structuring transactions that appeared designed to circumvent reporting requirements, while providing his clients with access to funds that might otherwise be subject to legal scrutiny. Catherine realized that Marcus's opposition to her independence might be motivated by concerns that extended beyond personal control issues. His business operations appeared to involve activities that could expose him to serious legal liability, and Catherine's association with law enforcement professionals, financial regulators, and domestic violence advocates might create risks that Marcus viewed as unacceptable to his continued operations. The offshore banking records that Catherine discovered among Marcus's files indicated that he had been moving substantial amounts of money to accounts in jurisdictions known for banking secrecy and limited cooperation with United States tax enforcement agencies. These transfers appeared to be structured to avoid reporting requirements while accumulating wealth that was not reflected in their domestic financial statements. Catherine's investigation revealed that Marcus had established multiple business entities that appeared to serve no legitimate operational purpose other than complicating the trail of financial transactions and ownership structures. These corporations and limited liability companies were registered in different states with varying disclosure requirements, creating a web of interconnected entities that would be difficult for regulators or opposing counsel to unravel completely. The insurance documentation Catherine reviewed indicated that Marcus had purchased substantial life insurance policies and disability coverage that named beneficiaries other than Catherine, including offshore trusts and business entities that she had been unaware existed. These policies suggested that Marcus had been planning for scenarios that might require concealing assets from both tax authorities and potential divorce proceedings. Catherine's discovery of cryptocurrency wallets and digital asset accounts revealed that Marcus had been investing significant amounts of money in virtual currencies that provided additional layers of anonymity and regulatory avoidance. The transactions indicated that he had converted substantial portions of their joint assets into digital forms that would be extremely difficult to trace or recover through traditional legal proceedings. The credit and lending documentation Catherine found indicated that Marcus had obtained significant loans using their jointly owned real estate as collateral without her knowledge or consent. These borrowing arrangements had placed their family home and vacation property at risk, while providing Marcus with liquidity that did not appear in their regular banking records. Catherine realized that the business relationships Marcus had cultivated included individuals who were subjects of ongoing federal investigations into organized crime activities, money laundering operations, and tax evasion schemes. His client base included restaurant owners, construction contractors, and real estate developers who had been identified in news reports as persons of interest in corruption investigations. The professional correspondence Catherine discovered indicated that Marcus had been providing financial advice to clients who were attempting to conceal assets during divorce proceedings, bankruptcy filings, and regulatory investigations. His expertise in asset protection had apparently evolved into assistance with activities that appeared to constitute obstruction of justice and interference with legal proceedings. Catherine's investigation revealed that Marcus had been maintaining detailed records of his clients' financial activities, potentially including information that could be valuable to law enforcement agencies investigating financial crimes. These records suggested that Marcus possessed knowledge about his clients' illegal activities that could make him a target for both prosecution and retaliation if his business operations became subject to scrutiny. The documentation Catherine found indicated that Marcus had been structuring his own compensation and business operations using the same methods he employed to help clients avoid taxes and conceal assets. His personal financial arrangements appeared designed to minimize his apparent income while providing access to substantial resources through corporate entities and offshore accounts. Catherine realized that her marriage had been subsidized by income from activities that could expose Marcus to serious criminal liability, including charges related to money laundering, tax evasion, and conspiracy to defraud government agencies. Her lifestyle and financial security had been built on foundations that could collapse if Marcus's business operations became subject to investigation. The discovery process also revealed that Marcus had been monitoring Catherine's activities more extensively than she had initially understood. Hidden recording devices, computer surveillance software, and communication monitoring systems indicated that he had been systematically documenting her conversations, correspondence, and internet activity for an extended period. Catherine found evidence that Marcus had been sharing information about her activities with his clients and business associates, potentially including details about her volunteer work with domestic violence survivors and her interactions with law enforcement professionals. This intelligence sharing appeared designed to identify potential threats to Marcus's business operations while maintaining surveillance over Catherine's developing independence. The financial records Catherine examined revealed that Marcus had been making substantial payments to private investigation firms, legal professionals, and technology consultants who specialized in surveillance, asset concealment, and reputation management. These expenditures suggested a level of sophistication in his opposition efforts that exceeded what Catherine had initially understood. Catherine's investigation uncovered evidence that Marcus had been researching her professional activities, educational background, and family relationships far more extensively than their personal interactions had indicated. Private investigation reports detailed her schedule, contacts, and even psychological assessments based on surveillance of her behavior and communication patterns. The discovery of Marcus's business activities provided Catherine with intelligence that could be strategically valuable in protecting her interests while potentially assisting law enforcement agencies investigating financial crimes. However, the information also revealed that her situation involved risks and complexities that extended far beyond typical divorce proceedings. Catherine realized that her knowledge of Marcus's business operations made her a potential witness in criminal investigations, while simultaneously placing her at risk if Marcus's clients perceived her as a threat to their financial arrangements. The balance between protecting herself and potentially assisting justice required careful consideration of legal and safety implications. The documentation Catherine discovered indicated that Marcus's business relationships included individuals who had demonstrated willingness to use intimidation and violence to protect their financial interests. Client correspondence revealed discussions about eliminating threats to business operations through methods that suggested Catherine's safety could be at risk if she pursued independence too aggressively. Catherine's investigation revealed that the financial resources available to Marcus for opposing her independence were substantially greater than she had initially understood. The offshore accounts, hidden business entities, and client relationships provided him with access to resources and professional services that could sustain prolonged legal conflicts while potentially financing more aggressive opposition measures. The discovery process also revealed that Marcus had been planning for potential disclosure of his business activities by establishing contingency arrangements that would enable him to relocate assets and continue operations from international locations. These preparations suggested that he viewed Catherine's independence as part of a broader pattern of threats to his business operations. Catherine understood that the information she had discovered created both opportunities and obligations that would significantly affect her strategic planning. The evidence of potential criminal activity provided her with leverage in personal negotiations, while potentially requiring cooperation with law enforcement agencies investigating financial crimes. The complexity of Marcus's business operations also revealed that any divorce proceedings would involve sophisticated asset tracing, forensic accounting, and international legal cooperation that would require expert professional representation. The resources necessary for effectively pursuing her interests would exceed what typical divorce proceedings required. Catherine's discovery of the true nature of Marcus's business activities provided her with a comprehensive understanding of why he had been so determined to maintain control over her activities and relationships. Her independence represented not only a personal threat to his authority, but potentially a professional threat to business operations that depended on secrecy and limited scrutiny. The intelligence Catherine had gathered would require careful handling to maximize its strategic value while protecting her safety and legal interests. The information represented both a powerful tool for achieving independence and a responsibility for potentially assisting in addressing serious financial crimes that affected multiple victims and institutions. The evidence Catherine had uncovered regarding Marcus's business operations created an immediate need for sophisticated legal guidance that extended far beyond typical family law considerations. The complexity of potential federal crimes, international asset concealment, and organized crime connections required expert consultation with attorneys who specialized in white-collar criminal defense and financial crimes prosecution. Catherine's meeting with Robert Martinez, a former federal prosecutor who had transitioned to private practice specializing in complex financial crimes, provided crucial guidance about her legal obligations and strategic options for handling the information she had discovered. Martinez's experience included prosecuting money laundering cases, tax evasion schemes, and organized crime financial operations that bore striking similarities to Marcus's business activities. Martinez explained that Catherine's knowledge of potential criminal activities created both legal obligations and protective opportunities that would significantly influence her approach to achieving independence from Marcus. The evidence she had documented could be valuable to federal investigations while simultaneously providing her with substantial leverage in personal negotiations regarding divorce terms and financial settlements. The legal consultation revealed that Catherine's status as a spouse provided her with certain protections against being compelled to testify against Marcus in criminal proceedings, but these protections would be nullified if she chose to divorce him before any potential prosecution concluded. This timing consideration required careful strategic planning about when and how to initiate formal separation procedures. Martinez advised Catherine that voluntary cooperation with federal investigations could provide her with substantial protection against potential retaliation, while potentially qualifying her for witness protection services if threats to her safety materialized. The decision to cooperate with law enforcement would require careful consideration of both personal safety and long-term financial security implications. Catherine's consultation with Martinez also addressed the asset recovery implications of Marcus's potential prosecution for financial crimes. Criminal forfeiture proceedings could result in seizure of assets that had been acquired through illegal activities, potentially including property and accounts that Catherine had believed were legitimate marital assets available for division during divorce proceedings. The strategic planning process required Catherine to balance multiple competing objectives, including achieving independence from Marcus, protecting herself from potential criminal liability, ensuring her physical safety, and maximizing her financial security despite the possibility that many apparent marital assets could be subject to government seizure. Martinez recommended that Catherine engage additional professional support from forensic accountants who specialized in tracing complex financial transactions and asset concealment schemes. These experts could help identify which assets represented legitimate marital property versus proceeds from potentially criminal activities, providing crucial guidance for protecting Catherine's interests during both criminal and civil proceedings. Catherine's decision to accept Dr. Rebecca Chen's employment offer with the Metropolitan Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative acquired new strategic significance in light of her discovery of Marcus's business activities. The position would provide her with financial independence while potentially offering some protection through her association with an organization that maintained relationships with law enforcement and regulatory agencies. The employment decision also represented a symbolic declaration of independence that would signal to Marcus and his business associates that Catherine was establishing a separate professional identity that could not be easily controlled or intimidated. Her visible association with women's advocacy organizations and financial education initiatives would demonstrate her commitment to transparency and ethical business practices. Catherine's strategic analysis of the timing for her employment announcement recognized that accepting the position immediately after discovering evidence of Marcus's criminal activities could be interpreted as a defensive maneuver designed to establish credibility before potential prosecution proceedings. However, delaying the decision risked losing the opportunity while allowing Marcus additional time to intensify his opposition efforts. The professional transition planning required Catherine to coordinate her employment start date with ongoing legal consultations and potential cooperation discussions with federal investigators. Martinez advised that her employment with a reputable nonprofit organization could enhance her credibility as a cooperating witness while providing practical support during what might become extended legal proceedings. Catherine's preparation for informing Marcus about her employment decision involved developing communication strategies that would minimize immediate confrontation while positioning her for long-term success regardless of his response. The conversation would need to address both personal relationship issues and the broader implications of their evolving circumstances. The security considerations for Catherine's employment transition included assessments of potential risks to her physical safety, professional reputation, and legal position that could result from Marcus's response to her independence declaration. James Washington Security Consulting provided guidance about protective measures that would enable Catherine to pursue her professional objectives while minimizing exposure to retaliation. Catherine's coordination with Dr. Chen regarding her employment decision required transparent communication about the complex circumstances surrounding her personal situation, without compromising ongoing legal consultations or creating liability concerns for the Metropolitan Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative. Dr. Chen's experience working with women in transition from controlling relationships provided her with understanding about the complexities Catherine faced. The organizational due diligence process revealed that the initiative maintained comprehensive insurance coverage and risk management protocols that would provide protection for both Catherine and the organization if her association with Marcus's business activities created legal or safety concerns. Dr. Chen's consultation with the organization's legal counsel confirmed that Catherine's employment would not create unacceptable liability exposure. Catherine's strategic communication with her professional network required careful messaging about her career transition that emphasized her qualifications and commitment to women's economic empowerment, while avoiding references to personal circumstances that could compromise ongoing legal considerations. The professional narrative needed to establish her credibility independently of any association with Marcus's business reputation. The financial planning implications of Catherine's employment decision required coordination with Sandra Walsh to ensure that her transition to independent income would not conflict with asset protection strategies or create complications for potential divorce proceedings. The salary and benefits from her new position would provide financial stability while potentially affecting calculations for spousal support and property division. Catherine's preparation for potential media attention regarding her career transition involved developing talking points that would present her professional qualifications and mission focus, while deflecting inquiries about personal relationships or circumstances that could compromise legal strategies. Dr. Chen's guidance about managing public relations for nonprofit executives provided valuable insight about maintaining professional credibility during personal transitions. The decision-making process culminated in Catherine's recognition that accepting Dr. Chen's employment offer represented the optimal strategic choice for achieving multiple objectives simultaneously. The position would provide professional fulfillment, financial independence, organizational protection, and enhanced credibility, while positioning her advantageously for whatever legal proceedings might emerge from Marcus's business activities. Catherine's communication with Marcus about her employment decision took place during what appeared to be a routine dinner conversation, but represented one of the most significant confrontations in their 22-year marriage. She presented the information professionally and calmly, emphasizing the recognition of her expertise and the opportunity for meaningful social impact, rather than framing the decision as opposition to his preferences. Marcus's immediate response revealed the depth of his opposition to Catherine's independence, while confirming her assessment that his concerns extended beyond personal control issues to include legitimate fears about how her professional activities might affect his business operations. His arguments against her employment focused on potential embarrassment to his professional reputation and interference with his client relationships. The conversation escalated when Marcus attempted to leverage his knowledge of Catherine's financial dependence and social isolation to pressure her into declining the employment offer. His tactics included threats about divorce proceedings, predictions about her professional failure, and suggestions that her association with women's advocacy organizations would damage their social standing within their affluent community. Catherine's response to Marcus's opposition demonstrated her evolution from someone who accommodated his demands to someone who made independent decisions based on her own values and objectives. She acknowledged his concerns while making clear that her professional development was not subject to his approval or disapproval. The confrontation concluded with Marcus's recognition that Catherine had fundamentally changed during the weeks since the Blizzard incident. Her confidence, strategic thinking, and access to professional resources had transformed their relationship dynamic in ways that his traditional control mechanisms could not reverse. Catherine's communication to Dr. Chen accepting the employment offer marked a definitive transition from contemplating independence to actively pursuing it through concrete professional commitments. The decision represented not only career advancement, but also a declaration that she would no longer subordinate her aspirations to someone else's expectations or fears. The employment acceptance also triggered implementation of the comprehensive strategic plan Catherine had developed with her legal, financial, and security advisors. Each component of her support network activated protocols designed to protect her interests while enabling her successful transition to independent professional life. Catherine's first day of employment with the Metropolitan Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative represented the culmination of her transformation from isolated dependent spouse to confident professional contributing to meaningful social change. The position provided her with institutional affiliation, colleagues who respected her expertise, and resources for continuing her mission of helping women achieve economic independence. The symbolic significance of Catherine's career transition extended beyond personal achievement to represent hope and possibility for other women facing similar challenges in establishing independence from controlling relationships. Her success demonstrated that apparent powerlessness could be transformed into professional competence and social impact through strategic thinking, professional support, and determined action. The employment decision also established the foundation for Catherine's continued growth and development as a leader in women's economic empowerment. The position with Dr. Chen's organization provided opportunities for expanding her expertise, building professional credibility, and potentially developing her own programming initiatives that could benefit countless women seeking economic independence and professional fulfillment. Catherine's first 3 months of employment with the Metropolitan Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative exceeded both her expectations and those of Dr. Rebecca Chen, who had recognized potential in Catherine that even she herself had not fully understood. The sophisticated programming Catherine developed addressed gaps in financial education that had persisted across the nonprofit sector for decades, demonstrating expertise that established her as an innovative leader rather than simply a capable employee. The comprehensive curriculum Catherine designed for women transitioning from economic dependence integrated advanced financial planning concepts with practical life skills in ways that had never been attempted previously. Her approach recognized that women leaving controlling relationships faced unique challenges that traditional financial education programs failed to address, requiring specialized frameworks that accounted for safety concerns, legal complexities, and psychological barriers to financial independence. Catherine's first major project involved developing a 12-week intensive program for professional women who had extended career interruptions due to family responsibilities or relationship dynamics. The curriculum addressed sophisticated topics including retirement planning recovery, credit restoration strategies, small business development, investment portfolio construction, and tax planning for newly independent individuals. The innovative methodology Catherine implemented combined traditional classroom instruction with individual coaching, peer support groups, and practical application exercises that enabled participants to immediately implement their learning in real-world situations. This multimodal approach produced success rates that exceeded industry standards by substantial margins, with 87% of participants achieving measurable financial independence within 6 months of program completion. Catherine's program development incorporated cutting-edge research from behavioral economics and financial psychology that explained why conventional approaches to financial education had failed to produce lasting behavior change among women facing major life transitions. Her integration of trauma-informed educational methods acknowledged that many participants had experienced financial abuse that created emotional barriers to money management confidence. The success of Catherine's programming attracted attention from foundation officers, government agencies, and nonprofit organizations throughout the region, who recognized that her approach addressed systemic problems that had resisted previous intervention attempts. The Illinois Department of Human Services requested permission to replicate Catherine's curriculum for implementation across multiple state programs serving women in transition. Catherine's professional visibility expanded rapidly as word of her innovative programming spread through professional networks and academic conferences. The National Association of Financial Educators invited her to present her methodology at their annual conference, while the Journal of Financial Counseling and Planning requested an article describing her integration of trauma-informed approaches with traditional financial education frameworks. The media attention surrounding Catherine's work positioned her as a thought leader in women's economic empowerment, while establishing her credibility independently of any association with Marcus's business reputation. Feature articles in nonprofit sector publications and interviews with local news organizations presented Catherine as an expert professional whose insights could benefit women facing similar challenges nationwide. The professional recognition Catherine received validated her decision to pursue independent career development, despite Marcus's opposition and the complex personal circumstances that had created uncertainty about her future. The success demonstrated that her academic credentials, practical experience, and innovative thinking had retained their value despite years of underutilization in supporting Marcus's business activities. Catherine's collaboration with Dr. Chen evolved into a true partnership that leveraged their complementary expertise to expand the organization's impact significantly. Dr. Chen's policy background and institutional relationships combined with Catherine's program development skills and grassroots experience to create programming that addressed both individual needs and systemic barriers to women's economic advancement. The organizational culture at the Metropolitan Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative provided Catherine with professional fulfillment that had been absent during her years of supporting Marcus's business development. Her colleagues recognized her contributions, sought her input on strategic decisions, and provided encouragement for pursuing increasingly ambitious programming objectives. Catherine's financial independence through her employment salary eliminated the economic dependence that had constrained her choices throughout her marriage to Marcus. The regular income, comprehensive benefits, and professional development opportunities provided security that enabled her to make decisions based on her values and objectives, rather than financial necessity or Marcus's approval. The professional networking opportunities that emerged from Catherine's success expanded her connections throughout the nonprofit sector, academic community, and policy organizations that focused on women's economic empowerment. These relationships provided ongoing support for her career development, while creating opportunities for collaboration on increasingly significant projects. Catherine's expertise in financial education began attracting consulting opportunities from organizations that recognized the unique value of her approach to serving women in transition. Law firms representing divorce clients requested her services for developing financial literacy programming, while domestic violence shelters sought assistance in expanding their economic empowerment offerings. The consulting work provided Catherine with additional income streams while establishing her reputation as an independent expert whose services were valued by multiple types of organizations. This professional recognition created opportunities for potential business development if she chose to establish her own consulting practice in the future. Catherine's success story became a source of inspiration for other women served by the Metropolitan Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative, who faced similar challenges in establishing independence from controlling relationships. Her visible achievement demonstrated that professional success was possible despite extended career interruptions and complex personal circumstances. The testimonials from women who participated in Catherine's programming provided compelling evidence of the life-changing impact of her innovative approach to financial education. Participants reported not only improved financial literacy and independence, but also increased confidence, expanded career opportunities, and stronger personal relationships that supported their continued growth and development. Catherine's documentation of program outcomes generated research data that contributed to the broader understanding of effective interventions for women experiencing economic abuse and financial dependence. Her collaboration with academic researchers produced peer-reviewed publications that established her as a serious contributor to the scholarly literature in her field. The policy implications of Catherine's work began attracting attention from legislators and government administrators who recognized that her approach could inform the development of more effective public programs serving women in transition. Her expertise positioned her to potentially influence policy development at state and federal levels regarding economic empowerment programming and funding priorities. Catherine's professional success created opportunities for advancing beyond her current position to roles with greater responsibility and broader impact. Dr. Chen indicated that Catherine's performance qualified her for promotion to Senior Associate Director within 12 months, with potential progression to Executive Director as Dr. Chen transitioned to her planned policy research position. The career trajectory that emerged from Catherine's employment success provided her with confidence that she possessed the qualifications and professional support necessary for continued advancement, regardless of how her personal circumstances with Marcus evolved. Her professional identity had become independent of her marriage relationship, providing security that transcended any individual personal situation. Catherine's achievement represented validation of the strategic approach she had developed for establishing independence through professional competence, rather than simply escaping an unsatisfactory personal situation. Her success demonstrated that apparent setbacks could be transformed into opportunities for growth and achievement that exceeded previous aspirations. The organizational impact of Catherine's work extended beyond program development to influence the overall strategic direction of the Metropolitan Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative. Her insights about serving professional women in transition led to expansion of programming that addressed previously underserved populations, while increasing the organization's funding base and community support. Catherine's professional relationships expanded to include collaboration with researchers at major universities, who recognized the innovation and effectiveness of her programming approaches. These academic partnerships provided opportunities for additional research projects, while enhancing Catherine's credibility within the scholarly community that studied women's economic empowerment. The speaking engagements that resulted from Catherine's professional recognition provided platforms for sharing her expertise with broader audiences, while establishing her as a sought-after expert whose insights could benefit organizations throughout the nonprofit sector. These opportunities generated additional income while expanding her professional network and visibility. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.